So I used to have a pal when I was younger. We were mad into pirates. That's what we used to do. We'd go out into the fields, around the corner from where I stayed, and we'd play pirates. But he ended up moving away, but his pirate name was Tragic O'Hara. And that's where I took it for, because I missed my pal so much. Nobody believed me. Nobody believed me when I said I had ADHD. I've been saying it for years. I get pure excited about things. So whenever there was anything happening at the school, I'd be like that, and I was pure up for it. Like, I'd end up not getting to do it because I'd be too excited and bouncing about the place and stuff like that. But like for years, even when I said to my wife and that, she didn't believe me. Like, because she'd get a cousin who definitely, he was diagnosed years and years ago, and she's like, "You're nothing like him." And I was like, "Aye, but it doesn't just be, it's not the same thing every time, do you know what I mean? It just depends on the person." Like, when I first started playing guitar, I would lock myself in my room for 8 hours a day. As soon as I came in from school, I would just sit and play my guitar all night. And then when I get mad into graffiti, like, you couldn't stop me from going out and painting and things. And then when I'm into something, it's like, that's the only thing I'll ever do. When that stuff was happening and I was saying some of the things that were going on in my head, people were saying, "I think you've got ADHD." Getting an actual diagnosis meant that I cut myself a lot more slack now than I used to. I think folk didn't believe me because my mum worked at the school that I went to. In primary 3, I remember being marched round classes and used as the example as don't be like this, be like something else, right? And then when my mum started going to school, they couldn't do that. So I'd be constantly writing apology letters to teachers and stuff like that for the things that I'd done. But because I wasn't like flying off the handle or chucking chairs around about or doing any of that sort of stuff, like, it was just like low, what do you call it? It never escalated because I was constantly surrounded by a parent that would, well, I wouldn't do that sort of stuff. But also because, like, nobody talked about it. Usually I'd have tore myself to shreds all day about the fact that I'd done this thing and I'd messed up and all that. And now that I know that I'm riddled with ADHD, it makes me feel a bit more like, well, do you know what? Like, I don't feel as if I give myself a row as much as I used to. When I was a teenager, like, I was drinking constantly, and that's a thing where that's a key indicator. Like, if you're doing that, then you've probably got some sort of neurological thing going on. So I think that's why people didn't believe me. But now it's like, now I say to folk, "No, obviously." What does it mean to be a walrus chaser? It's the only thing that I've ever said that makes sense to what it is that I do. I don't feel like an artist. When I played music, the whole time I was playing music, I don't really ever think that I felt like it was a viable career option. The walrus chaser thing came about because it was a job I didn't like. It was a job that I hated. I was in digital marketing at the time. I get told when I was 26 that I was too old to make it as a rock star. And then I was on the way to the shop to buy red wine because I was drinking a bottle of red wine every night. And then I Am the Walrus by the Beatles came on my headphones. And I didn't go into the shop, and I just went a big walk for 3 hours, just listening to the same song over and over and over again. That feeling that I got from that song, like, if I feel it in anywhere else in my life, I think that's the thing that I should be doing. So as a walrus chaser, I'm following the feeling rather than what the outcome is. So all the stuff I'd done when I was out playing music was all vandalism. Like, there wasn't anything there that would ever been constituted as art. When I went out and I played gigs, because I played by myself, what I would do is I would just take cans of paint in my suitcase and I would just go out after the sound check and then write my name and things and then go back and play the gig. When I started doing the art thing, because I've always kind of wrote graffiti and things, like, since I was 15, and then when I started getting into it again after the music thing, that's when people started to offer me money to do stuff, and I couldn't believe that people were willing to pay money and for that. So that, getting the money for making art gave me enough to actually go and start doing all the other things, and, like, using the money to buy myself the time to chase the walrus. So when I started doing things, like, when I kind of fell away from that and I got back into it when I stopped doing music, I started to take a bit more time in it, and it wasn't as much about just going out and trying to put your name up loads of different places, and I started going into, like, abandoned buildings and things and practicing that way. And when I started taking photographs of that, that's when people said, "Could you do that for me?" For a long time, the biggest stuff that I ever done was just stuff that I could reach. But I think the biggest thing that I've done so far is, I don't know, maybe 2-story, maybe. I don't think I've done a 3. I have done a 3-story gable end, so that's the biggest I've done so far. I'd never have a plan for anything I'm ever going to do ever. Usually when you draw something for somebody and they look at it, it never goes that way anyway, because you're always finding something to battle against. There's always some part of the wall that's not particularly clean enough for whatever it is you're trying to do. So when I When I do anything, I don't really go with a plan, and when I write my name or I do the things that I want to do and that sort of stuff, very rarely will I do any sort of, no colour, it will always just be sketching, and then once I know the rough idea of where it's going to go, I just make the rest up as I go along. My favourite stuff that I've done is all stuff that, like, nobody's asked me to do. My favourite thing's always the last thing I painted, because if I'm saying my favourite things I think I done 5 years ago, then I'm totally going the wrong direction. My book is called A Practical Guide to Walrus Chasing, and it's the 7 things you need to do if you want to become a walrus chaser. These were the 7 things that I ended up convincing myself were real, so that I could go and do the things that I want to do without having to second guess myself. So yeah, so I was writing the whole thing out and all that, and I didn't realise that what I was doing at the time was writing like this big coping mechanism. But that's it. So it's on my website, tragicalhara.com, and you can get it for there. But I would like to know where it starts and where it ends. Whatever happens in the middle is whatever happens. Because I'm free to move from thing to thing to thing, that's probably the best outcome for me, because it is, I get bored too easily, but also, like, when I'm into something, I'm into it. So it's like, that's where it is, like, I just float from thing to thing.